impacts might be of this effort. I will just say, just briefly, that Main Street's interesting in the sense that whether it's different mayors or different boards of aldermen or different directors, I think, over time, and different staff, we've all had a little bit of a different vision for this space. And so it's sort of a bit of a battleground of different priorities and how we all want to prioritize different community values. And I think this current mayor, and hopefully this Board of Public Works and the Board of Aldermen, are interested in creating a more dynamic Main Street. And so that's why we're proceeding forward with at least making this application. We do recognize that this is a substantial project from a cost perspective, not just on the design side, but ultimately if we get to construction, this is not something that it's likely that the city alone would be able to fund because there's so many other priorities out there. And so at this point in time, we're really trying to prioritize looking at federal funding sources in their entirety to support our efforts here because of all those other efforts that are underway in the city. The RAISE program application that we've submitted is for $3.5 million. That's 100% federal money to fund this project to do that design work. I'll get into a little detail in just a second about that. What we're working on right now is addressing the USDOT's merit criteria within their strategic plan. I won't get into any detail about that because it's a little more depth than we want to talk about today. But these involve things like, again, equitable transportation access, innovation, level of service, state of good repair, ensuring that the infrastructure is in good shape. All of those things are really important to the USDOT. Wanted to quickly note that we're enthusiastic about applying this year because when we submitted in 2023, I'll be very frank for this group, and I certainly recognize it's a public forum, but I think we feel comfortable saying that we really scrambled within a short period of time to get an application in. It was an incredible effort on behalf of the city, Lisa and the team in Public Works and Engineering, and certainly in City Hall. We were actually fairly proud of what we put together in a short period of time, and that was reflected when we received feedback from USDOT. We were essentially told that our project was very, very competitive. It got to sort of a final round of review. It was sort of an elevated status. It just didn't make the final cut to be funded. And again, that's this design project. They gave us some really great feedback, and so we've been hard at work updating the grant application as it existed and was submitted last year. Dan, if you wouldn't mind, just go to the next slide. So what we're submitting in 2024 is really, it's similar in scope to what we submitted in 23. It's a 3-phase project involving a level of an engineering study, preliminary design, getting the documents to 30% construction quality, and then final design all the way to sort of bid-ready or construction-ready documents. I've broken it down a little bit further within the budget presented here, but this all comes out to be $3.5 million in total cost. It's not cheap. This is a long corridor. There'll be a substantial public engagement and visioning process, and we'll have to have a variety of different consultants on the traffic side, on the landscape architecture, and on the urban design side too. Those are all really important to this project. So we're really enthusiastic. We're all ramping up to submit in just 12 days here to USDOT. And so we're just in the final stages of getting letters of support and buttoning up the sections of the grant application. I included these two figures at right just for reference, but we're looking at all sorts of different crash data and other data sets that maybe we haven't, I think engineering and DPW does, but some of us don't always look at on an everyday basis. So it's really good. It's been really good perspective to us to look at the corridor from sort of a data-driven perspective. But there again, we're very excited about submitting this and hopefully securing $3.5 million of design moving forward. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions about the application. I would just reiterate that, we don't know what the final design solution will be, whether it will be modifications to travel lanes, whether it's modifications to parking, what the implications on infrastructure might be within the right-of-way. We don't have a good sense of any of that. This is really a design effort to figure all that out. And so many of your questions I'll likely be unable to answer, but I'm happy to talk about what we're submitting to USDOT.
This is great that we're doing this, and hopefully we can get the 3.5. We just did a public feedback session on the Walnut Street circle. Oval. Yeah, ish. I don't even know what shape is that. So I'm assuming that will be taking this into consideration in terms of like what comes out of these design sessions, right? Because I don't know, you can't really design the two in isolation, I assume.
That's a great question, and I'll take this opportunity to mention that the downtown circulation study that was recently adopted by the Board of Aldermen talks to some of this, but we want to continue that conversation with this group, but we're not designing any of these in a vacuum, and frankly, I think we're trying to be deliberate as a team to take the input from each of the independent projects and make sure it's reflected in sort of the next project that we begin to work on.
Gotcha.
I'll say it's easy for me to say, it's a little bit harder to do, but what I think is great is that the core team, we're a small enough city that the core team working on this project is the same team that's working on the Walnut Street Oval project. And so we're hearing the same things, and I hope we're all here for a long time, by the way, to maybe get some of these projects done, but we're definitely not looking at them in a vacuum, I guess is the short answer.
Great.
I don't have any questions. I'm very excited about the advancement of this. Just apologies to Director Hannum, who I called Director Sheila earlier. I mixed up my Liz's in my mind. So but sorry about that. Yeah, very excited about this. With the state's tenure, that's where this would end up once the project is designed, or?
Perhaps not.
Okay.
It's possible that, and maybe I should have started with this. The RAISE application process is interesting. They're very much trying to, they have two programs. They have a planning and design program that we're applying for, and they have a construction program. They would ultimately like to see projects from their planning and design phase move into the construction funding phase. And so 10-year plan is a great thing, but it's a chasm in a way that you go into. Maybe I'll regret using that term, but you're on a list, but it's very unknown once you get on that list when your project's actually going to be done.
We've seen that in French Hill.
Absolutely. And so I don't want to say we're doing an end around on that process, but because of what this project is and because of the dollars that are available and how well we align with those dollars, I think our first priority will be to seek RAISE specific money to fund the construction rather than going through the 10-year plan process.
And is the RAISE construction side also 100% funded?
The RAISE construction program is 100% funded.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we're
As of right now.
and they're not capping. They're capping awards, but they're not really asking communities to put match up if there's a shortfall. So we're gonna have to make that call once we know what the actual cost of the project once designed actually is. We're very fortunate to have a project that, as proposed, has tremendous potential impacts to low to moderate income individuals and vulnerable populations. That's sort of that yellow map up there, actually, and the blue that's slightly outlined is the project area. That puts us in a category that allows us to be 100% federally funded. And so, it'll be a huge impact for those populations, but it also gives us great benefit in the application process and allowing us to get 100% funded.
And is it because the project catches that Amherst Street intersection and steps into that census tract?
It's actually more that the project catches. It's more that the census tract around Main Street, sort of to the south there.
Okay.
That is what we refer to as an area of persistent poverty. That's really the critical one. There is a small portion of the project that's not in any of those areas of persistent poverty, but the ruling from USDOT is that most of your project is, so therefore you're eligible for that 100% reimbursement.
That's great.
But generally, the project is almost all within an area of persistent poverty.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other information on this topic? Any further questions?
The only other piece, you've given me an opportunity to maybe add
Sure.
one more thing.
No, please.
The only thing I would say is that we do currently have very sort of conceptual level design monies available at the city level for this. We had been a little bit on pause to putting an RFP out. We're likely going to proceed with sort of a concept level design process for some extent, if not the full extent of the corridor. And so if you see that come out over the coming month, that's not this. That's sort of a step that we have funding for right now that we'd still like to proceed with.
So it's due the 28th.
Yeah.
When do you all expect to hear back?
We don't hear back until I believe June or July of the year, so we'll be on pins and needles until then, but it could be some really great news around July 4th, could not be. We'll be waiting a little bit.
Do we know with certainty that advancing any amount of this design won't challenge the eligibility for this?
That's a great question. Quite the contrary, I would say.
Okay.
The advancement of the design, I think, only positions us better. Frankly, I think one of the things that we perhaps wish internally is that we had a little bit more sort of visual or rendering design done for our applications. It is not in any way sort of a limiting action that would take us out of eligibility.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Should be fine.
All right. Any other questions on this item? Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Director Sullivan. Next, we have the Heritage Rail Trail East project.
So thank you. I just wanted to say, Liz and Matt and Tim, if you want to head out, I won't be offended. So it's the beginning of a long weekend, so I figured I'd give you the opportunity. But all right, okay. Well, here we go. I'm Dan Hudson, city engineer. So the Heritage Rail Trail project, we have a number of projects here. I'm just going to kind of step through fairly quickly, give you a high-level overview, and welcome to address any questions if you want to dig in deeper in the details. So the Heritage Rail Trail East project, it's funded through the DOT's LPA program process, where the funding comes, it's 80-20% match typically, so it comes through the DOT, meet their rules, and we're able to submit for reimbursement for a portion of the funds, so it's good value for the city. This one is funded through the CMAQ program. We have a consultant on board at CMA Engineers. The current project budget is $1.7 million. And this project involves extending the current rail trail to the east from Main Street to Denton Street, so along that old rail corridor. The project proposes to reduce congestion on East Hollow Street and enhance pedestrian bicycle facilities with the construction of a 10-foot wide paved multi-use trail along the former rail line. The CMAQ money is congestion mitigation, air quality funding, so basically you're trying to shift modes, get people walking or biking, and the traffic on the roadway thereby benefits by reducing congestion. The status is we're finalizing our preliminary design. We just did a change order, or an amendment, I guess, with CMA, so that we could delve into some right-of-way issues. These projects are hard to do. We have one section of the path that's a very narrow right-of-way, and you just can't build it and stay within the right-of-way. So we amended their contract to include some work that we'll need to do to work through negotiations with property owners to secure the right-of-way we need to build it. And currently, the construction is estimated to occur in 2026. Any questions about that one? Okay, moving to the next project.
I do have one quick question. Is some of the motivation for this to improve pedestrian access to the Crown Hill surface lot for potential?
Yeah, certainly. There's a lot of points of destination in East Nashua, Crown lot. We've talked about a rail station there in the future, so this would provide a nice pedestrian connection into that area.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next project is the Locke and Whitney Street project. This is the one I think you were referencing earlier about it's taking a long time to get traction on this. Again, this is funded through the CMAQ program, same program. Same consultant as well, CMA Engineers on this one. Current budget is $1.2 million for the project, which we'll have to evaluate as we go through. That might be a little light in today's dollars. The project is to make pedestrian and bicycle improvements in the French Hill neighborhood. It'll improve bicycle and pedestrian accessibility along portions of Lowell Street, Locke Street, and Whitney Street. Project's anticipated to convert Locke Street and Whitney Street to one-way traffic, making the sidewalk on one side of Locke Street and Whitney Street fully ADA compliant, and then do as much as we can on the other side to improve access, through ADA ramps and those sorts of things. Create a dedicated bike lane, utilizing some of that area that we recouped from the two-way traffic pattern. converting to one-way, and incorporate traffic calming measures. Project is intended to act as a catalyst to continue further revitalization of the French Hill neighborhood. We're currently just getting the project started. We actually brought an engineering study to this board for approval. Now it goes to finance. We're waiting for DOT's approval to go to finance. We just received that. So that'll be going to finance soon, and then we'll be kicking off the project. One of the early efforts will be to have a local concerns meeting, similar to what we did there at Wallen Oval project recently. Construction is currently slated for 2027, 2028 timeframe. Any questions on that project?
For this project, this may come up at the neighborhood concerns meeting, but while I'm thinking of it now, the inclusion of covered bus stops in the neighborhood, especially for this project, but throughout the city. But for this project, I think it's very important, and I hope that it's one of the priorities. There are a lot of people in the neighborhood that do take the bus to work, to go shopping, and it's never fun to stand out in the snow or the rain when you don't have another option to get to where your food is. So I thought I would raise that while we're here. But another exciting project, so thank you for sharing.
That's great. Great input. I made a note of it, and we'll consider that as we go through the process. So the next project is the Nashua Downtown Step Project.
Sorry, Dan, before you go
Yes.
on, just from because I think I'm new to this, so how far does it go down Whitney and Lock?
All the way.
So all the way down Whitney, all the way down Lock?
Yeah, I misspeak.
Yeah, it's
you're
a
right.
Chandler and Foster Square.
Yeah,
It includes Chandler, or
ends up.
A Chandler's not
We're not
included, or
changing the pattern on Chandler.
Chandler
no.
will remain 2A.
But the other two basically make a big triangle here, those two streets, right?
Got it, thank you.
Yep. Okay, the next project is the Nashua Downtown Step Project. This is funded through Federal Highways Accelerated Innovation Deployment Aid Project, or funding, I should say. This has been a combination effort between consultant Hoyle Tanner out of Manchester and actually city engineering staff. Kind of worked collaboratively. The city did a bunch of engineering work and survey for these projects, and Hoyle Tanner helped us with some other aspects, kind of QC, QA, and estimating and other things. So it's been a joint effort for the design phase. The project budget is $600,000 roughly, and the program here is a safe transportation for every pedestrian program, which looks to improve pedestrian safety in the downtown core at mid-block crossing locations through the implementation of proven safety measures. And those would be, as shown in the right-hand figure here, bump outs to narrow the roadway, make the crossing shorter, installing rectangular rapid flashing beacon assemblies, so you get the blinking lights, and those have been proven to improve driver yielding to pedestrians by up to 80%, and other measures like that. So we're excited about this project. It's out to bid right now, so we're hoping we'll receive bids. The bids are due back on the 21st, and the countermeasures are slated to be employed on Factory Street, Kinsley Street, Canal Street, and along the rail trail crossings west of Main Street, with construction hopefully this year. Any questions?
Do you have the list of where y'all will put them?
Yeah, we do. I don't have it with me, but we can share that with you, or the plans are available also on the bidding website for the city. Anybody can go. You don't have to be a contractor. You can go download the plans and see the full plan set. But they are kind of sprinkled around the downtown area.
So with the circulation study, have we concluded that this is a candidate for reversal or not? Or is
Factory
that-
Street?
Yeah.
So the circulation study, which was just adopted recently as guidance document, as Director Sullivan was noting, does speak to Factory Street being one-way westbound.
Mhm.
So that is kind of the overall guidance we're working to. Right now, we're advancing some other projects we'll talk about a little bit later on Water Street and other areas, and during construction we may need to make some changes, but that is what's currently contemplated is some kind of major east-west one-way pairs. Factory Street being one of them, and westbound.
So am I hearing that we may need to kind of reverse signaling or something of that nature, depending on the timeline of that? So it sounds like you're being mindful of that. I guess my original question was, will this be deployed in a way that the signage could be reversible at a low to no cost? Or will it be deployed in timeline with the potential reversals, so that's a non-issue?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So yeah, the purpose of bringing that circulation study was so we kind of sort of had a master plan to work towards in the city, but each of these projects get advanced individually. But we want to do that in consideration of, an ultimate goal here. In this case, yeah, Factory Street's currently eastbound, so if it later becomes westbound, we'll need to modify those crossings. It's as easy, I believe, as spinning the signs on the poles that will be installed to face the other direction, the poles and the signals. Most of these are set up so they have indications on both sides anyway.
Okay.
Sometimes, well, on two-way streets, obviously, they have stuff on both sides. So, so that should be a fairly easy change at a later date, should that pattern be implemented.
Thank you. I've got a little bit of a lingering question on the Heritage Rail Trail piece. Do we know the status of the Henry Hangar building and what's happening there?
I'll defer to Director Sullivan. I know it did come through planning board because I sat on planning board and there was approvals made. I just don't know the current status of that work.
It was actually paused, I would say. If you go by today, though, it is actively under construction. You should see people actually working on the building. The last few times I've been through, they've actively been doing window work, and you can see things going on. You can also see construction vehicles strewn across the frontage, which is not ideal, but there are things actually happening on the site.
Cool.
88 units of residential.
That's great. Appreciate the update. Thank you.
Any other questions on this one? Okay, move to the next project. So Walnut Oval improvements. Some of you are familiar with this already, but this is funded through the bipartisan infrastructure law, supplemented with some congressionally directed funding. Our consultant on the project is Hoyle Tanner. Current budget is close to $4 million. And this project is to improve safety and access for vehicles, bicyclists, pedestrians in this area, just west of downtown. The current configuration is fairly complicated, especially to those that aren't familiar with the area. The oval connects Walnut Street, Chestnut Street, West Pearl Street, Central Street, High Street, School Street, Factory Street, so a lot of streets. And it acts as a barrier for smooth flow of traffic from certain areas to other areas. So one of the main ones is the connection from Veterans Memorial Parkway to Main Street is pretty convoluted. So one of the major features or goals of this project will be to make that a more direct connection, and then also really to implement traffic calming and pedestrian bicycle infrastructure in the area, make it much more walkable, more bike friendly. We did have a local concerns meeting on January 30th. Received some good input, some people that work locally or pass through this area on bicycles and on foot, and they did speak to the challenges in this area and the fact that they don't feel very safe navigating that oval. So we're excited to go through this project and come out the other end with a design that achieves the goals that we're trying to achieve. Currently, construction is slated for 2026. Be happy to address any questions.
For the local concerns meeting, I was not able to attend, unfortunately. Did anyone raise the, I like to see this Hellenic Circle picture here. Did anybody raise the priority of the name for the space, or, because we've been referring it to as the Walnut Oval, like in an official capacity. There's a lot of kind of markers there with a nod to Nashua's Greek heritage. Was that brought up at all?
It was brought up. I mentioned the name, the historic name. This project going through the state's project, we'll go through a complete cultural and environmental review. So it'll be interesting. I'm sure they'll do research and study of the area and document all that history. As we advance the project and there's areas developed, maybe we'll be able to recoup some additional green space or other areas. Certainly well within the realm of possibility that maybe we name some of those and to give homage back to the history of the area. So there's a long way to go there yet, but certainly that is on forefront in our mind.
Thank you. And with the recent passing of George Cadis, he would never hesitate to pick up the phone or invite you down to chat about Ted Williams and whatever else is going on in the city. Do we have a firm point of contact for that set of properties?
We will. We do, I'm sure, but we will. It was I'd say small but very interested group of folks that came out to the local concerns meeting. We fully recognize that we need to go make more direct contact with the abutting parcel owners and business owners and residents, just to make sure that we fully understand what their needs and goals and hopes are for the project. So we will be making those direct contacts in the very near future.
Great.
They were all individually invited as well, so we
Yeah.
handed out flyers to each business in that area.
Okay. Yeah, I know that they've made some accommodations, purchased the old tire building for additional parking for their employees, and so it's good that we'll further engage them to get some feedback, even if they weren't able to make it to this public concerns meeting.
Just to add on to that, Mr. Chairman, Tim Cummings, for the record, Director of Administrative Services. About a year and a half ago, the mayor and I sat down with George Cadis and his sons when he purchased Bob's Tire, because that was a new acquisition for him. As you all may or may not know, he owns a couple properties within the project boundaries, but Bob's Tire was a new acquisition. And knowing that was happening, we wanted to very early on have a conversation with the Cadis family, so they knew that this project was coming. Because to straighten out Central Street to connect into West Pearl Street, there will be some takings, and we're very sensitive to that. And so we wanted to make sure that wouldn't be a surprise to the Cadis family. And so they're well aware of it. They understood. They're very receptive, and they've indicated that they would want to work with us, and they know that they would need to give up some property, some parking in particular, to be able to have that area straightened out, and they think that would be the best thing for the community overall, so they want to work with us on it.
Good, that's great. Appreciate that. All right, any other questions on this item? No, very good. All right, thank you.
Okay, the next project is the Taylor Falls Veterans Memorial Bridge Rehab. These are the two bridges that connect Nashua and Hudson. We received funding through the federal bipartisan municipally owned bridge rehabilitation program, or the Moore Bridge program they call it. Consultants involved in this project are Dubois and King. They did the design of the rehab, and Hoyle Tanner has been contracted for the construction administration. In DOT projects, you can't have the design consultant be the construction administrator of the project, so you're required to contract somebody else, so that's what we've done. Still retain the design engineer, though, through construction as well for change order review and that sort of thing. Budget for the project is $2.5 million. The project will rehabilitate these bridges over the Merrimack River. Rehabilitation will include removal of existing asphalt wearing surface and the membrane on each bridge. Saw cut, remove the deteriorated concrete. Partial depth and full depth repair to concrete deck and sidewalk with new concrete patching. Install cathodic protection at all deck repair locations on the rebar. Install new barrier membrane and asphalt wearing surface. Replace the east and west deck end expansion joints. And other miscellaneous repairs, broken balusters on the railing and those sorts of things. Idea of this project obviously is to rehab it before it falls into a state of disrepair where we'd have to do a more extensive and more costly project. And And the construction, we went out to bid. Beck and Bellucci was the low bidder. Construction is slated to begin this year and extend into 2025. We are working with them to see if we can accelerate that and complete everything in 1 year, but at this point in time, we can't commit to that. So we're per the documents, we're scheduled for 2-year construction, and we'll see how it goes. Any questions?
Any questions? I do have a question. It's kind of project adjacent. So we see the Desire line there kind of going under the bridge. Is it the case that we can or cannot have any sort of walkway on top of the levee that is so for context for everybody, so on the left-hand side under the bridge you can kind of see the beaten path. The beaten path is actually, from my understanding, on the top of a U.S. Army built levee that was installed maybe 80, 100 years ago after a giant flood kind of swept water into the city on that side. And for a time there was some discussion about the idea of making a riverside pathway atop that. And so I'm wondering if we know for a fact whether or not that is a feasible thing.
So yeah, obviously any changes Army Corps would have to approve, but I do believe it's feasible.
Okay.
Army Corps, we get inspected periodically, and they have interest. They want to make sure that our top elevation is held constant, because that's, per the design.
Mm-hmm.
When we have any rodent holes, that sort of thing, they want those addressed, so, paved surface would help with that. Currently, we have kind of a problem with dirt bike usage and stuff along there, and kind of tearing up some of it, and I'm not anti-dirt bike, but I wish they wouldn't do it on the top of the levee. So yeah, that is something that, it's not part of this project, but it is something that would be feasible should we find funding and ability to do that sort of a project.
Okay. Yeah, my thought is that with the second phase of the residential development over there, and the potential usage for those residents of the Never Eat Soggy Waffles, the East Hollis rail trail extension, that I think would be something that would be worth further investigation. You've got those two properties with a lot of residents there. The potential on the long term for them to access by foot the rail station, should we get ourselves there. Just while I'm looking at this picture and thinking of it, I wanted to ask the question, because it was uncertain to me as to whether or not we could actually do that.
Yes. I think we can.
Okay, appreciate it. All right, any other questions?
I should have mentioned, this project is being developed jointly with the town of Hudson. So it is an 80-20 project. 20% is the municipal match, and that 20% we're splitting 50-50 with Hudson. So for 10 cents on the dollar, we're getting these bridges rehabbed. 10 cents on Nashville's dollar, I should say, we're getting this rehabbed. And actually, there's no out-of-pocket cost for Nashville, actually, because we received some bridge funding from the state, which we're actually using as our match. So great project, and Hudson had led the design phase and got it to the point that we're ready to go to construction collaboratively with us, but Nashville's leading the construction phase, and we look forward to completing the project.
Do you think that it would behoove the Army Corps of Engineers to pay for a cap on that? Like that would have a secondary use of a pedestrian way?
Something we could discuss with them as things evolve. Yeah, we have a number of ongoing issues that we're working with them on, and there's some other improvements that are needed as well, repairs and improvements. And they constructed originally, the city took it over, we're responsible to maintain it, but some of the work, it would be nice to have some participating funding from them. So something that we could discuss with them.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next project is Water Street roadway. This is related to the riverfront project in a sense. Obviously, the park work that was noted earlier is going to remove some parking spots along the river. So this Water Street project will convert Water Street to one-way and add some parking up on the street level that doesn't currently exist. The design to date has been funded through the Riverfront TIF. Construction, we still need to work out the details on. It'll probably be a combination of that and paving program funds, possibly. The design consultant to date's been VHB. The budget for this work, I don't know, maybe it's in the Riverfront budget, but we haven't really targeted that. We have some other work that we need to complete probably before we finalize the Water Street. Obviously, don't want to redo this road and pave it and then have construction vehicles coming and going for a couple of years completing the Riverfront project. So this actual work will probably trail, though we may need to do some interim work to support the loss of parking and those sorts of things while the park's being constructed. Recently, the Board of Aldermen approved making Water Street one-way, so it would be one-way westbound, heading away from Main Street towards Factory Street, which you can kind of see on this plan. It's a little hard to see. So I'd say we're still in the engineering phase of the project, working through some final details. But this project we'll be finalizing and taking a bid probably in a year or so. Be happy to address any questions.
Yeah, I just, one of my concerns every time I see this bridge is always the walkways and the sidewalks on it. Just the number of times I see, like, for example, snow mounts on the sidewalk, so therefore people decide to walk onto the street, and I'm just hoping that, we can take into consideration ways that we can make it so, because it gets very narrow, and I always, somebody comes down this quite often on my way to Main Street, like, just want to make sure we keep pedestrian safety in mind.
Any other on the street? Because I'm going to segue to the bridge, which
So,
was just being discussed.
when did the Board of Aldermen approve the one-way reversal?
So it was the very end of last year. It was one of the last legislative items for the last legislative item for last year.
And
Yeah.
and that hasn't come to us, right?
No, that didn't come to this board.
Okay.
Other than, I think Director Cummings may have mentioned it in previous waterfront project discussions, but no, it didn't get referred to this board.
Okay. I'm still struggling with our purpose and the words that kind of form this group and why we're here. And like why things like this don't come before us for approval. I don't know how fellow commissioners feel about this, but for me personally, I would like to see things like this come to us for approval. I'm happy that the Board of Aldermen supports this and other improvements, but just as a matter of the reason that we're here, it's my view that we should be approving items like road reversals. Do any other commissioners have thoughts on this? Or
So technically, permanent traffic changes like this fall under the Committee on Infrastructure. But should it be referred here for, yes, it probably should. And that's something that we certainly can talk to the Board of Aldermen about.
Director Photo, if I may.
Sure.
So again, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. I think what Director Photo is giving you is a very technical answer in terms of how the charter reads and the powers and the responsibilities as delineated through our governing documents and the ordinances, the NROs that we have to live by. However, I think everyone recognizes here that we absolutely need to come together. It's one of the reasons why Director Photo is adamant that we do today's type of conversation
Yes.
with everyone.
and I appreciate that.
And so because we do want to make sure that we're working hand in glove with all groups here in the city of Nashville, but absolutely the Board of Public Works.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm very enthused about the higher level of involvement that I see us having, and the director taking the initiative to bring about. Yeah, and I, personally, I would support this project if it came to us, and would really like to see us continue to grow in that direction.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next project is the bridge. I just broke these into roadway and bridge because they're a little bit different, but we have Hoyle Tanner working on a design of a rehab for the Water Street Bridge. We had him do an inspection and found some issues. So given everything that's occurring in the area, it seems logical that we'd want to tackle this project in collaboration with everything else. So we've been advancing design of that and hope to go to bid with a rehab project in the near term, within a month or so. We've been using the capital bridge funds to advance the design. Those are those funds I mentioned that we received from the DOT, or from the state, but it was basically funding that the legislature provided to communities with very few strings attached, which was great for us. The money had to be used on bridges, but other than that, it was pretty wide open. So it's been great to be able to utilize that funding to advance some of these inspections and designs and construction projects. So, so as I said, this inspection determined the Water Street Bridge is in need of rehabilitation. It's currently in design. The work is expected to consist of new pavement on roadway approaches and bridge deck, new barrier membrane over the bridge deck. There'll be concrete repairs to the sidewalk, patching. It's very similar to the Hudson project I was mentioning, those bridges. But this one is going to involve more substructure repairs. There's bridge bearings that need to be replaced. There's the bridge steel underneath needs to be completely repainted. Needs new expansion joints, lots of various work to be done. And the end of this bridge actually intersects with Factory Street, so as we advance the design, it's come to our attention that we need to kind of redo that intersection as well. The ramps currently at the intersection, they're not ADA compliant. The slopes don't match the requirements. So those will be redone, and we'll probably actually bump out in Factory Street a little bit with the design. So we're working through those details now, but we do hope to get the design completed and advertise it, hopefully for construction this year or next year.
I have a question about the area under the bridge, which is kind of an informal gathering place. And with all the changes in there, what do you foresee happening down underneath?
So permanently, nothing. It's like after this bridge is done, we're gonna those areas will be returned to the availability they currently are. During construction, there's going to be some impacts. While they replace the bearings on the beams, they're going to have to shore underneath to hold up the beams while they pull those out, put new ones in. The painting operation underneath is going to be extensive. They're going to have to tent off the whole area, sandblast off the paint. Prime it, repaint it. There's a lot of concrete repairs underneath as well. There's a lot. The piers have extensive cracking, and this bridge was rehabbed back in the 80s, and it's already in a state of needing repairs again. So we're going to try to do a good job with it, do those repairs, but it will require access for the construction underneath. So there will be impacts, and we're working through those discussions as well with various folks that will be impacted.
Yeah, I know that I've often gone out there to talk to veterans about stuff, because I have like an informal meeting place. It's good.
Yep.
As long as you're all aware.
Do you think that meeting place may shift when the vision for the riverfront?
Yeah, and I wonder where, every time I've been there, there've been a number of people in wheelchairs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of wondering where they're going to go,
Right.
because there aren't a lot of spaces in that whole sort of area to congregate, I guess it's called.
I can speak to that. We just met with the Delenas House, who
Okay.
rents a lot of those spaces,
Yeah.
permits them. And during construction, we're actually gonna move them to the other side on Factory Street there.
Okay.
And then we'll work with them once it's back to normal, they'll get those spaces back. Yep.
Great.
Does this set of improvements address the lighting along the bridge? I know that at one point, there were very nice lights, kind of light poles that lit the bridge. They've just rusted and fallen or been taken out due to safety, I assume.
Yes.
Above the bridge or under the bridge? You're talking about?
Above the bridge. So,
Above the bridge,
So
okay.
for further context, the
Okay.
railing that
Yep.
goes along that side there, every maybe 30 feet or so, there's a place for a lamppost.
Okay.
And over time, they've been
Disappeared.
Yeah, they've disappeared for safety issues, just because they're super old. And so that's my question. Does this project include addressing that? If not, can it? Or will that potentially be addressed alongside the riverfront improvements?
During the construction,
So this is why we have these meetings, right? It wasn't currently in our design plans, but it's something that could be incorporated, so we'll look into that and try to advance that if that's the desire, which makes perfect sense. There's a sidewalk there, it would make sense you'd want it lit. And,
Yeah, and it's a
so
little
I
it's a
do
little
understand.
spooky up there with
Yeah.
no light along the ramp, and so yeah.
The final configuration being one way, we're going to end up recouping some of that width. So again, it's our intention to have some parking along the bridge as well. So therefore, another reason to have some additional
Absolutely.
lighting. So that's an excellent input. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, the next project is the West Hall Street Corridor Study. So we're currently advancing this corridor study. The funding, I think, was error funds that were appropriated to this project. It's been a goal for a long time to study this corridor. The project study extends from the Riverside Street intersection all the way to the Hollistown line. We've hired Hoyle Tanner for that project as well. Budget for the design is $189,000. Or I said design, I mean corridor study and concept design. But the project will identify near and long-term goals to improve accommodations and safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, while maintaining or improving vehicular access and capacity along the corridor. The study's underway. We did hold a neighborhood meeting here at DPW on February 6th, and that was fairly well attended. We received a lot of great feedback from the residents along the corridor. Basically, there's a lot of concerns with safety along the corridor. It's not approachable for running, biking, walking. Speeds were a major concern, which kind of ties in with that safety. That's kind of the nexus of the safety concerns that appeared. And there's a lot of discussion, too, about the westbound flow and the merge that currently exists in the busy area there at the charter school and Wellesley intersection. So a lot of great discussion. Now it's our charge to go and come up with some ideas for improvement. As I said, again, we'd like to identify some nearer-term things. There's a couple things we can do fairly inexpensively to get safe pedestrian crossings, for instance. And then what would the longer-term improvements be along the corridor? We're going to look at things like roundabouts. We're going to look at signal modifications. We're going to look at, shared multi-use paths, all kinds of things like that, and bring back some ideas for consideration. So we're underway. Happy to receive additional input from board members, the residents, whoever has interest in this corridor. We encourage them to reach out to us and share that input. Be happy to address any questions.
Last session, Commissioner Moriarty invited some guests to join us and share concerns about pedestrian safety near to the, is it Foteens?
Yes.
Foteens Market.
Yes.
Was that raised again at the public input session?
Yeah, it certainly was. There was unfortunately a fatal pedestrian crash there, so we're definitely aware of that. that issue in that area, and there's, of course, demand locally for access to Fotine's market there. So, yeah, that was raised. We're aware of it, and it's one of the issues that we'd like to address through some safety and pedestrian improvements.
Okay, appreciate that. I just want to make sure we didn't lose sight of that one item.
Yes.
It's
We did create a project website for this project, as well as a Walnut Oval, and we'll add other projects as we go forward. But if you go to the Public Works website, on the left-hand side is a menu. All the way at the top, there's a Public Works project link, and you click on that, and you get in, and you get more details on these various projects.
That's great.
Yeah, we just, like I said, we have a couple added right now, and we'll continue to expand upon those and add. That presentation from that meeting is there, as well as a link to the government TV recording of the meeting, so if anybody would like to see that.
Thank you.
And the last project I have for you today, certainly not all the projects we have going on, but the last one I want to highlight today is the Mine Falls pedestrian bridge. Again, this is being funded through those capital bridge funds that we noted, as well as some matching funding as well from the Mine Falls sell money, basically, sell revenue. We have Hoyle Tanner as a consultant as well. They completed an inspection. Originally helped us secure a temporary bridge to put in place while we had to remove the other pedestrian bridge, I guess, that had fallen into disrepair and was a hazard. And then they've helped us through a design process. We bid out a reconstruction project for a permanent replacement bridge. And Everox Corporation was the low bidder on that project. The replacement bridge will be a steel truss bridge with a concrete deck, so easily maintainable in the future. And like I said, we just barely got contracts signed, so we're seeking an updated schedule from the contractor, but they've put the order in for the bridge, and we would hope that will be delivered. Ideally, that'd be delivered and installed before the end of this season. It's a little tight, but we're hoping that it can be done. How much does the project cost? So the total project budget right now is $970,000. The construction of the bridge was $770 or so, something like that. $2 million?
No, so is the 900 on top?
That's all in. That doesn't include the purchase of that temporary bridge, but 970 is all in on the construction phase, and I think that includes the previous design engineering as well. So.
How long is that bridge?
It's 110 foot long, and the new bridge, replacement bridge, will be 10 foot wide, and it will be 10-ton loading where the previous bridge was less. This will be 10-ton loading, so it'll be suitable for emergency vehicle access and maintenance access, which is great.
How does it get placed exactly?
A big crane.
Is it-
So no, seriously.
Usually it's going to just.
No, I know, but from which side? I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I was just curious.
Those are great questions. A crane or two cranes, but yeah, basically the bridge will arrive, the trusses will arrive in sections probably, and then they'll get connected, and then it will get craned out over. The bridge initially has a steel pan basically, and then you pour the concrete into the pan, creating that concrete deck. So yeah, it's fascinating work. It was fun to watch when they erected the temporary bridge. Same process, came on some big trucks, big cranes, and we got some great aerial shots of that, and I'll have to put those on a website
Is there
too.
going to be official reopening?
There certainly should be some kind of ribbon cutting, that sort of thing. Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. I think we. My job's done when it actually is a usable feature for the city, but certainly it's important to celebrate those achievements. So yeah, we definitely should do that.
The temporary bridge really is a temporary bridge. Like, we can't really deploy that somewhere else on a permanent basis. It seems to have a bit of a wobble to it.
You could. It is a permanent bridge in the sense that it's intended to be a permanent bridge. It was used on a project in Peterborough on a temporary basis for a couple of years. We bought it from them because they were getting ready to leave that project, and so we bought it from them, and we've been using it as a temporary bridge. But it is a long, fairly narrow bridge, so yeah, it does A bunch of people run across it, it doesn't move, but that doesn't mean it's unsafe, but it does move. Yeah. We've been scratching our head trying to think of if there is a permanent place that we can use it, so we haven't necessarily found one yet, but we could also sell it, you know, like we bought it and somebody used it temporarily, we could probably sell it for somebody that had needed the same service.
Do we already have a solution for the Pan Am footbridge? Is this too short for that?
We have a solution, we just need money.
Yeah, no, the Pan Am.
What is Pan Am, like
Too short
100?
for the Pan Am.
Pan Am's like 160?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Oh,
it's
it's
more,
that long.
it's more than that.
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's the only spot that I can think of. Fine. Good, appreciate it. Thank you for the updates.
We've also thought of placing the temporary bridge to connect the Holocaust and Rotary Common.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
So, yeah,
We
so
did-
I think that's like,
think that's a great
may
spot.
happen.
Yeah.
We did explore that, and we advanced it. We went to bid with an ad alternate for that, but we ended up not awarding that alternate just because Pennachuck owns the dam that's in that same vicinity, and the status of that is still a little bit up in the air. They're going to be studying it. It needs either to be repaired or replaced, removed, and so we just didn't want to place this bridge in the way of any of that construction. But yeah, I mean, if we complete this project and Pennachuck's work moves along and we have a final disposition of that would be a good spot for it.
Thank you.
Just curiously, where would y'all store it?
Well, back here, probably. Yeah.
Where we store everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions on this item? Okay.
All right, that's the last slide I had.
I suppose we need a motion. Yeah.
Can I just add one other thing?
Please do.
Please. So we need to have a budget workshop, and I wanted to throw out Thursday, March 14th at 1:30. Wondering if that would work for commissioners. 1:30, Thursday, March 14th at 1:30. That would be to go over our proposed fiscal 25 budget.
Yes.
Would that work for everyone? Okay, great. We'll get that, 1:30, Thursday, March 14th. Okay. And it does work with the mayor's schedule, so we'll schedule it. A couple of hours, 1:30 to 3:30 probably.
All right.
Great, thank you. Now you can.
Now I could use a motion. Commissioner Lemon?
I motion that we adjourn this meeting of the BPW workshop review.
Yes, second that motion.
Any objection? All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much.